In 130 AD, there's a letter describing this phenomenon of persecuted believers to the Roman ruler Diognetus that summarizes their conduct and vision. They are in the flesh, but they do not live after the flesh. They pass their days on earth, but they are citizens of heaven. They obey the prescribed laws, and at the same time surpass the laws by their lives. They love all men and are persecuted by all. They are unknown and condemned. They are put to death and restored to life. They are poor, yet make many rich. They are in lack of all things and yet abound in all. They are dishonored, and yet in their very dishonor are glorified. They are evil spoken of, and yet are justified. They are reviled and blessed. They are insulted and repay the insult with honor. They do good, yet are punished as evildoers. When punished, they rejoice as if quickened into life. They are assailed by the Jews as foreigners, and are persecuted by the Greeks. Yet those who hate them are unable to assign any reason for their hatred. To sum it all up in one word, what the soul is to the body, that are Christians in the world.
This is a pretty amazing insight. There's a transformation that happens as we draw closer in our relationship with our Messiah. We start to see things not from the here and now, the struggles and trials of today, but our focus changes. We put our eyes on God and draw our strength and joy from that relationship and the eternal kingdom of God.
In the book of James, he writes to the believers scattered through the nations, encouraging them to count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And as you look through the Psalms of David, you see a similar pattern. David was pursued and persecuted by Saul without cause. But in the midst of it, David gave his faith and praise to God.
Some scholars believe he wrote the 23rd Psalm and others at Ein Gedi, when he was in the middle of hiding out from Saul, who had been chasing him for years. David wrote, "Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of Adonai forever."
David wasn't just focused on the problems of here and now, but was looking to the reward of dwelling with God in His presence forever. Our focus can be our weakness or our strength if we choose to set our mind on God and on His love for us, to remember that even in the valley of death He is with us. We will be victorious. David believed in the midst of his hardest trials, when all seemed lost, he believed the words God had spoken to him, that God would protect him and sustain him. But beyond blessings and provision, the key aspect you can see is the close and loving relationship you see between David and God.
As followers of Yeshua, we see that He uses these trials to bring us closer to Him, strengthen and refine us. These hard times can make us the men and women that He's called us to be. Just like with physical fitness, if you want to get stronger, you need to push yourself, and the pain you experience with the tearing of the muscles is what causes the new muscles to build stronger. In the same way, God is preparing us for greater responsibility by the trials we endure. But how do we gain the strength to endure these trials, to forgive others, and live in that sort of victory? Let's go back a few verses to see.
Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. I think this verse can be a little overwhelming when you first look at it. But remember, it didn't say perfect in action, but pure in heart. We aren't born with a pure heart. This is why we need Yeshua. Jeremiah 17:9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" King David knew his state as he cried for God to create in him a clean heart. And in Proverbs it says that out of the heart springs all the issues of life. So here's a few practical tips to keeping your heart right.
Bring your inner pain to the light. Admit the hurt to yourself and to God. Deal with the past and don't just keep the wounds to yourself. Invite God to help and pray over your pain and disappointments.
Number 2, forgive those who have hurt you. Forgiveness is the key of all inner healing and transformation. And it's not always others you need to forgive. Sometimes you need to forgive yourself. This requires a lot of prayer like step 1. Talk to God, but then if possible, talk to the person who hurt you.
Number 3, turn from your old behaviors. We need to take action. Don't think that just because you say you're sorry, that your behavior automatically changes too. Find practical steps to change, ways you can prevent that offense from happening again. If it's an addiction like pornography or drugs, get someone who can hold you accountable and pray with you. You may need to do physical steps to avoid the temptation. Be zealous to get rid of sin in your life and seek help from other believers to guide you in your path.